Hey everyone, my name is Hannah Barrett, and I am going to go through my prompt one. So, the standards that I am covering in this lesson for science, we have SKL2, which is obtain, evaluate, and communicate information to compare the similarities and differences in groups of organisms. For language arts, we have students will acquire and use grade level vocabulary, and student acquires and uses grade level words to communicate effectively. For math, students will classify objects into given categories, count the number of objects in each category, and sort the categories. And for social studies, describe the work that people do. So, just a description of my standards. The goal for the students at the end of instruction, they should be able to understand that living things can be grouped by their similarities and differences. They should use observation and vocabulary to describe plants and animals. In this standard, I'm only focusing just on animals for this specific lesson. That students should learn and use new vocabulary to express ideas clearly. And students should be able to classify, count, and compare groups of objects. For the teacher must understand basic life science concepts and how to guide students in comparing and communicating information. Effective strategies for teaching words through modeling, discussion, and real life connections. And early math concepts and use of hands on activities to model sorting and counting. So, according to Tomlinson, differentiation refers to the intentional adaptation of instruction, including content, processes, products, and learning environment to meet the diverse readiness levels, interests, and learning profiles of students. And how this looks in my classroom is scaffolding. Not every student is going to receive the same level of support. I might model a little bit more for certain students. Some students might get some more visual aids and some more guided questions than other students. I also like to give my students choices in how they're going to learn things, like especially in math. Or do they get manipulatives? Do they not get manipulatives? If they think they need them, they're welcome to have them. I kind of like just let them use and do their learning and just kind of figure out what they think that they need, and that helps make them very successful. Next, we have zones of proximal development, and that really kind of goes back into scaffolding. Most of the time we do the I do, we do, you do method at first, especially in kindergarten, because a lot of things are done that way in kindergarten, first starting and first learning things. So as the year progresses, I try to release them a little bit more. And then modeling, like I said, kindergarten is mostly modeling. Some students have to have more modeling than others. Some students, you can just kind of show one problem or one thing and they get it, whereas others need three or four, or they might just need the whole activity modeled. Next, we have the pedagogical content knowledge, also known as PCK. So, according to Schulman, this is the blend of knowing what to teach and how to teach it in ways that make sense for students. And how I do this in my classroom, I anticipate for student misconceptions during my weekly PLCs with my grade level and my instructional coach. We go through our lesson plans for reading and math, and we pick out the misconceptions that we think are going to happen. And so we kind of already have that before going into the lesson. I monitor student responses, and I'm able to just kind of adjust on the fly if things are not going how I think that they should be going, we can reel it back and start over. We can try a different approach. And using formative assessments, even things such as like just thumbs up, thumbs down, who's getting it and who's not getting it. My first approach is read aloud. And according to Fontes and Pinnell, read aloud is a teacher led approach where the teacher reads a text aloud to students, modeling fluent reading, expressive annotation, and comprehension strategies. Teachers engage students with questioning, discussion, and prediction to enhance understanding. This approach supports vocabulary development and language, specifically for early learners and those ELL students. You're able to model comprehension strategies such as summarizing, predicting, and making connections. It promotes engagement, listening skills, and critical thinking, and serves as a bridge to independent reading. How I manage and monitor this. I'm able to track comprehension and participation during reading louds. I like to pause and stop and ask questions very frequently throughout my reading, and this really helps me gauge if the students are understanding the story, if they're able to comprehend it, if they have questions. And I also establish very clear expectations and norms. um, my students know what is expected on the carpet when we do a read aloud. And if the expectations are not met, we pause, we wait till everyone is doing the correct thing before we move on. So for my evidence, we read the story Jack and the Beanstalk, and here is a picture of me reading the story to my students. You can tell that they are actively listening. They're all looking and paying attention. They all are sitting appropriately, not turned around backwards or anything of that nature. My reflection for this is that I think the Jack and the Beanstalk read aloud helped students with practicing how to listen, how to discuss the story, and we learned some new vocabulary words. Some of the strengths included comparing and grouping animals and plants, counting and sorting, and connecting characters' jobs, which ties into one of our social studies standards. Students were very engaged. They shared ideas, they made predictions, and they collaborated effectively. Some of my evidence showed that my above level learners really excelled at making inferences and connecting ideas beyond the story, while my students who struggled, they still benefited from guided support and peer collaboration. For future read alouds, I think I want to add some hands on activities, such as maybe acting out parts of the story, or maybe using objects like in Jack and the Beanstalk. We could use objects to represent the beans and the plants. So that way, all learners are engaged, and we have active participation throughout the story with all students. My next approach is cooperative learning. And according to Johnson, this is a structured group work in which students work together in small groups to achieve specific learning goals. The teacher designs tasks so students depend on each other, take individual responsibility, engage in positive interaction, and develop both academic content and interpersonal or social skills. Um, the reason that I like this one is because students often learn well when explaining things to each other. Sometimes they learn better from each other than they do from me. Um, and they're able to engage in dialogue. It can increase student motivation, participation, and retention of content. Working in groups allows peer learning and can help some of the weaker learners benefit from their stronger peers. How I manage and monitor. I do a lot of teacher observation and checklist. Um, I have a checklist that I carry around on a clipboard that has a lot of different things, specifically things that are tied to GKIDS that I have to assess, and I can just easily check off if the student is doing it or not doing it. Um, I teach and model behaviors such as how to ask good questions, how to respond to peers, how to be an active listener, how to sit and make sure that the person that you're speaking to knows that you're listening and paying attention. So my evidence for number 2, over here on the left side, I have some evidence of my um, emergent group. So in this activity, they were sorting animals based on their coverings. So this group sorted them into 3 categories. They had fur, scales, or feathers. Um, we did this together as a group. I really had to guide them and help them question, because it was still a little difficult for this specific group. So after we sorted, then we graphed them together to tie in our math skill. And then over here on the right, this is my advanced learners, and they had the same activity, but they were sorting their animals into 5 different categories. And some of the animals went into both categories. Some of them were a little tricky, and so they really had to rely on each other and use that dialogue to talk through and work through what animals went into which category. And so after the advanced students did their sorting, they completed their graph independently, and they didn't need help from me to do that. So for my reflection on this approach, during our group time, students sorted their animals by their coverings. This helped students practice how to compare and classify organisms. Some of the strengths included sharing ideas, asking questions, and listening to partners. My above level learners extended their thinking by sorting animals into more complex categories and explaining their reasoning. Students needing support worked with fewer categories and benefited from guided prompts and peer collaboration. Observing the groups allowed me to reinforce respectful communication and to help guide their thinking. In the future, I plan to include more hands on extensions, such as using real objects or manipulatives, so all students can explore classification concepts more deeply through active engagement. And this last piece is just my references that I used. Thank you so much for watching.